Oh, hello. Welcome to another video, and in this video I'm talking about a different game. Or am I? It's my unboxing and review of Warhammer 40,000 Fireteam. So, what on earth is Warhammer 40,000 Fireteam? Well, it's one of Games Workshop's bookshelf games, and you could be forgiven for not ever having heard of these games. They have mentioned them in passing on Warhammer Community, but they don't sell them in Warhammer or Games Workshop stores, and they don't let them. They're not on the list of things that can be bought by friendly local gaming stores that have a trade account with Games Workshop. In general, they're only available from Game in the UK, which is a video game retailer, or Barnes& and Noble in the USA, which is like a big chain bookshop. I think they are also available in some small independent stores in Canada and Germany. Many of them are themed around simplified versions of existing games. So Fireteam is obviously the simplified version of Kill Team. They've also got, as I've pictured at the bottom there, Bladeborn, which is obviously simplified Warcry, Blitzbowl, which is simplified Blood Bowl, and Dreadflame, which is simplified Underworlds. Now, I've picked this up. I own a copy of this because I'm really interested in trying to get my 11-year-old stepson into Kill Team, ultimately, and just into the world of Warhammer. And, you know, it's really interesting to try and work out the best way to introduce somebody and teach somebody how to play these games, because they are quite complicated and they are quite strange and quite different to video games and things like that. And Games Workshop has provided this kind of as a gateway, an inroad. But then I've got a longer video coming, which is talking about how to teach people to play Kill Team, where I'm going to touch on this, and I want to touch on the Recruit Edition booklet, and I want to talk about playing with the compendium first, and all sorts of stuff like that. And this kind of video spun out into something else. It went down a bit of a rabbit hole. Sometimes when you research something and you think about things, you end up going down rabbit holes. So this is a review of a Fireteam, but that's where the thinking's come from. Is it going to be a useful tool to introduce somebody ultimately to playing full-size Kill Team? So let's have a little look inside the Fireteam box, and let's talk about it a bit and see what we get. So the rules. If you want to browse the rulebook because you're curious, it's actually available for free officially from Games Workshop at their website. Their sort of flashy marketing version of their website that most of you guys watching this probably never go to. But if you go to Warhammer 40,000 with all the 4 zeros written out like that.com/fireteam/ you'll find the Fireteam site. So you can read the PDF for yourself. It's got 6 pages of core rules, 2 pages of campaign rules, so this game actually has rules for campaign play, 4 pages of background, and assembly instructions for the included models. It does come with miniatures. Let's look at the miniatures it comes with. So it's a Necron Warrior squad and an Assault Intercessor squad. The Necron Warrior squad is in silver plastic, and the Intercessors are in blue plastic. We've seen the Intercessors in blue plastic before. I think they've brought out a few things in that blue plastic. The silver plastic is new. I sometimes find that this coloured plastic they do is just a bit softer and cuts a bit, and it clips off a bit less nicely than the standard grey plastic. Look, this costs. It was on the previous slide. I didn't read it out. I did put it on the slide. This set costs $45.99, right? Pounds from Game. And given that you have to buy it from Game, and basically every Game store is out of stock, you have to buy it online from Game, you then have to pay $4.99 postage. So it's near as that 50 quid to get this set. With the Recruit Edition available at £32.50, and the fact that you can get the Recruit Edition through your friendly local gaming stores, your Games Workshop trade accounts, for up to like a 25% discount if you if you go to different places. Obviously, if you're after the models, you're not buying this for the models. You're going to get that Recruit Edition instead. Plus, you get the 2 extra characters in the Recruit Edition. This is not something that you're buying up for the plastic. Okay, this is an oddity that we're going to talk about for the rules and the cardboard components. The plastic is stuff that we've seen over and over again, and is available really cheaply in the Recruit Edition and on eBay. So it comes with a double-sided board. Now the board's really small. So if you look, where is my famous green pen? There we go. If you look in this picture here, this is a board. I think it's the Octarius board or possibly the Chalnath board, folded up as small as it will go. Okay, to give you a sense of scale. So it's, I don't want to say it's quite half. You can see that I'm going over the halfway line that way, but I don't quite come up to the halfway line that way. So it's sort of like it's sort of half a kill team board, because the folded up one is a quarter of a kill team board, right? So it's around and about half a kill team board, but not quite the same shape. It's really quite small. I've got it up on the edge of a desk. It's good though, because it means that we can play without having to rearrange the furniture or do anything else. We've got a little collapsible gaming table that we get out to play kill team on, like a little camping table. So this goes on a corner of the modelling desk easily enough. It's quite nice. The design is obviously more bright and vivid, I think, than a lot of Games Workshop things usually are. You've got like the Necrons on one side, sort of down here, and then this one is more of a kind of ruined Imperial thing that I think is really, really saturated. It's obviously that they're going for a younger demographic. I think it's a really, really saturated print compared to a lot of the stuff they do for their main games. The hexes are really familiar. So anybody who's played Blackstone Fortress will remember this hex grid from Blackstone Fortress. That's what it reminds me of. I know they used hexes for Warcry as well, but because this has shooting, and the shooting works in the same way where you're drawing line of sight from like the centre of a hex to the centre of a hex, and you've got blocked hexes and cover hexes kind of printed on the board. It reminds me a lot of Blackstone Fortress in that regard. Cards, dice, and tokens. Now, some of this stuff's really nice. So the dice, with my hand here for scale, are not the usual horrible Games Workshop dice that you get in their starter games, kind of, I don't know if they do them anymore, the plain white plastic ones that feel really hollow. They're quite a lot bigger. They're bigger dice, and you get quite a lot of them, and they're quite chunky in your hand, so that's really nice. You get 3 decks of cards. Only these ones, the targets of opportunity, are used in the standard one-off game. The other 2 are used in the campaign game. Now, I've not played it as a campaign. I've played 3 or 4 single-player games, 2 against my stepson and 1 against Mrs. Tabletop Impulse. I've not played a campaign game yet, though. But the targets of opportunity are basically your objectives, your secondary objectives. So, whereas in Kill Team, as you know, you're assembling your own deck and generating your objectives from there. In Fire Team, you draw 3 cards from a common deck. So first player draws 3, second player draws 3. If you don't like them, if you don't like 1, 2, or 3 of them, you can put them back and replace them, but you can only do that once. And then you've got your 3 objectives, and then you reveal 1 on the first turn, 1 on the second turn, 1 on the third turn. It's only a 3-turn game, not 4. And once they're revealed, you can fulfill them just like in ordinary Kill Team. You've also got a lot of cards with the different missions on, and I was really impressed. There are a lot of missions. I didn't actually count them before I took the photograph, but there's at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I can see 15 there. There's a lot of missions, and each mission gives you the exact layout for the board, where you're going to put the objectives, which side of the board you're going to use. And I was really impressed with the amount of effort they've put into replayability for a board game. That's really good. And actually, wouldn't it be nice to have little mission cards like this? I don't know, because Games Workshop would sell them as extras for like £25, I'm sure. But little mission cards for the little missions in Kill Team. Maybe they're not necessary because we don't have the layouts, right? Because we're using our own terrain, but I don't know. They look nice. You get some pretty standard tokens. There are a lot of tokens. Like a lot of games, it goes a bit better when you replace a lot of the tokens with dice, to be fair. The wound markers, replaced with dice. And then there's a mechanic where instead of getting to activate all your models once, both sides get 8 activations. And if you activated all your models, you can activate them again. But when you activate them the second time, they only have 1 APL. So, they have -1 APL, but generally they only have 1 APL. So that's like your Overwatch mechanic. And I'll run through all the differences at the end, but I'll probably mention a few as we're going on as well. So that's what this tracker cards down here is about. So you've got your 3 turns at the top that you track, and then you've got your 8 activations per turn that you can track. But we ended up just using dice for that after a couple of games. Box inlay. The box inlay is really interesting. So you get 2 sets of inlay. The top one holds all your cards, and this gap here is for your dice. The bottom one, with the miniatures that are included, these aren't the miniatures that are included, these are just some miniatures that I found on my modelling desk. But they kind of slot your miniatures in and holds them there, suspended above the surface of the tray in these little bubbles. These big gaps here for the scarab bases that the Necrons come with, right? It's fine if you want to buy the models and put them separately in the box, because this is all the Warhammer you own, and I'm sure it's pretty nice. I am not going to use this bottom tray because I am going to paint my miniatures and I don't trust it. You have to really use quite a little bit of force to get the miniatures into these clips, but I think it's a neat idea. And certainly if you're just going to push them together and use them unpainted, which is perfectly valid, then it's a really nice way to store them all in one box, right, and treat it like a board game, which is pretty well what it is. Okay, that's good. Right, so let's have a look at the actual cards, and I'm thinking for Kill Team players, this is probably going to be the most interesting part, just to compare what they've done. So you can see that the stats are basically the same. You've got APL, okay, defense, save, wounds, and move. Now the move is in hexes, so it's 3 hexes, not circles, alright? And look at that save, 4+ on a Marine. So that tells me that they've balanced stuff without having much of a regard for getting people into the other games. You know, the game is balanced internally. Marines make sense with a 4-up save, but there's just a lot of 40k. If you're coming from 40k, and you've been playing it for a long time, you're going to be like, well, Marines have a 3-up save. That's just a fact about Marines, and it might make you uncomfortable that they have a 4-up save, right? So, and the weapons are pretty similar as well. So bolt pistol, you've got your range. So things do have a range in this. There's not infinite range. So it has range 5 hexes. You roll 4 dice. It wounds on a 3-up. It's got 3/5 damage. And pistol just means that you can use it when someone is in base-to-base contact with you. You can fire with your pistol if you want to. I should say that close combat rules work the same as shooting, right? So they've gotten rid of the quite nuanced close combat rules from proper Kill Team. Everything works like shooting. So on your turn, you roll your attack dice, you pick up all the ones that are your hit value or greater, then they roll their defense dice, and then any that they pass their defense, they can negate your hits. And unlike Kill Team, you don't need a crit defend to stop a crit. You don't need to spend 2 defense dice to stop a crit. The only things that crits are protected against being saved is that you have to save all the normal hits first before you can save the crits, right? So as you roll for your bolt pistol and you roll your 4 dice and you get a hit and a crit, and they get 2 successful defense throws, they can negate both of them. If they got 1 successful defense throw, they'd have to negate the normal hit. Otherwise, it works like Kill Team. You've got some rules text on the sergeant here, which you can't quite read because of the glare. What that essentially says, after you've activated your sergeant and he's finished, you can give one of your other intercessors an extra APL. So they have APL 3. And then he has the plasma pistol. A plasma pistol has overcharge. So if you choose to overcharge, you get +1 to your damage, whether it's a hit or a crit. And then if you roll a 1 to hit, you take 4 wounds. Okay. No customization. This is your fire team for the Space Marines. It's 5 Space Marines, 4 regular guys with bolt pistols and chainswords, and 1 sergeant with a plasma pistol and a special rule. Ploys, so there's no command points at all. Ploys have been replaced with every team has this list of 3, and you can just pick 1. Right, so for example, combat doctrines, which is probably the one I pick the most often, you pick a friendly operative, you put a little ploy token next to him, and you change the operative's weapon hit values to 2+ for that turning point. right? So quite often you get your leader and you'd want to change him because he is, you can't quite see, but he's a 3+. The glare's right on there. I'm really sorry about that, but he's a 3+. You change him for a 2+. So you're just applying one of these auras essentially across your onto your team every turn. And then we can look at the Necrons. So the Necron team is much larger, but remember the Necron, everyone gets 8 activations, right? So even though they have 13 models, you're only going to get to use 8 of them. Meanwhile, the Marine player is going to get to use all 5 of his Marines, and then activate 3 more of them again with an extra APL, with 1 less APL for each 3, right? So it's still interesting having loads of models because it means you can move stuff next to an objective and then park it there and then use other figures and not have to worry about your one on an objective being wasted. So they've got 2 different options, the Flayer and the Reaper. Essentially what you've got is the Flayers have got range 10, but they only roll 4 dice, hitting on 3s, 3, 5. The Reapers have half that range, range 5, but they're rolling 5 dice, still hitting on 3s, and they're 3, 6s, so they're a bit more damaging. Okay? Yeah. And they can't make the same action twice during their activation. So again, it's worth pointing out that the Marines, you know, they don't have that rule, so anyone without that rule can actually go, well, I'm going to shoot twice. Which is another difference from big kill team, right? I'm just going to shoot twice. So I'm going to move twice. Yeah? The Scarabs have a lot of rules. The Canopet rule boils down to how they can be deployed. So each mission only has 10 deployment squares, and then you deploy the Scarabs at the end. They can fly, so they can move over things. Other operatives, they can move over block hexes. And they have mindless, so they can't control objectives. And you have to activate them after a Necron warrior activates. They're not really extra members of your team. They're just extra little bits. Okay. But they do have, you know, they have their attack, range 1, 8 attack dice, you know, damage 1, 3. They're just there. To be honest, I think they're mainly because they're on the sprue. They're not particularly useful. And again, they have 3 things that they can pick from. So you could just turn on your Necron warriors, yeah, every turn. Roll 1 dice for each Necron warrior. That's been taken of action. Each roll a 6. Place 1 Necron warrior on hex their own territory. Each Necron warrior placed in this way an activation token. So you can bring back your Necrons every turn, but again, you're still only getting those 8 activations. So this should be quite thematic in that you're constantly churning the Necrons back onto the board, and you never feel like you haven't got any pieces, but your miniatures are quite more weaker than the Space Marines, and you're still limited by those activations. Yeah, you can turn off basic combat protocols for 1 Necron, I guess if you had one that wanted to shoot twice, right? And then you've got a dimensional corridor, which is going to let you move more quickly around the board. So right, you're picking one of those. So that's Space Marines and Necrons, which is what you get in the box. But that is not all. So they've included rules for a few more teams. You've got Orcs. And this is the Knob box from Games Workshop. You've got to buy this separately. And again, you've got to build them, you know, exactly as shown on the card. There's no customization, no nothing, okay, in that regard. And so they're Orcs. Like, I'm not going to go through all of these. I don't think that's of pretty limited interest to people. You can see the stats kind of explain how they work. Again, you know, this is quite fun. They can have, as one of their ploys, you just decide, I'm going to have the first turn. And certainly when a player gets Tabletop Impulse Junior, his thing is if he doesn't have the first turn, he takes the first turn. If he has the first turn, he considers which of these he wants to use. But if he doesn't have the first turn, he'll take the first turn. Yeah? So you do the sort of thing, set up, and you pick your ploy, and then he'll go, okay, well, we're about to go into the actual phase where we play the game, and now I have the initiative, so now I'm going first. Pretty strong. It's interesting to me as well that the, you know, the Necron team is what it is. The Marines team is basically an entire kill team. You could take that fire team from fire team, and you could run that in big kill team. You wouldn't do well, but it would be a legal kill team, right, of assault intercessors. Whereas the Orcs are 5 knobs. I don't think knobs are even part of the Greenskins list. But then again, at the time this was made, the new boys box wasn't out, and the knobs box is a lot cooler than the boys box, and I think it's quite a fun little team. That's not all, though. Imperial Guard. Okay, so it's a box of Stormtroopers. The Stormtroopers are pretty cool. Their kind of thing is that they all have guns that have range. So we've got range 10, range 8 on the Hotshot las gun, range 10 on the volley gun. So they're kind of the long range team. Okay, you know, yeah, not much more to say. I'm not going to go through all the stats on the card, but they're the long range team. And again, they got the three things, and they can pick which one they want to do. And you've also got the option of doing Harlequins, 6 Harlequins, because again, there's a box, right? And even more so than the standard thing, they've just stuck everything to the box. Harlequins, who have a 3-up save, and Marines have a 4-up save. You know, they're just quite hard to kill, but then they only have 12 wounds. And the players only have 8 wounds. So, if you hit them, they die. But they have the better save. It's kind of balanced. It's kind of interesting. It plays internally as one game. It plays quite well. It's just that it doesn't necessarily prime you. And I want to talk about this a lot in my next video about teaching Kill Team. It doesn't necessarily prime your expectations for Kill Team, because if you expect that Harlequins are going to have a 3-up save and Marines are going to have a 4-up save, then you're going to be in for a bit of a shock. But it feels, when you put it all together with the reduced number of wounds, it feels kind of cool. If you actually hit them, right, then they're going down. It feels kind of cool. Some familiar things here: prismatic blur, right, which just lets you pick a friendly operative, give him a employee token, and add 1 to his defense characteristic. So now you've got defense 4 with a 3-up save, which makes them exceptionally hard. Considering that there's one of the secondary objectives, which is your opponent picks a model and then you have to try and kill it for like 2 victory points. I was playing against Mrs. Tales of Impulse, and she had that on a Harlequin every turn, prismatic blur, same guy, and it took me all 3 turns to finally get this one guy down. He took an awful lot of fire. They're really difficult to actually hit and wound. But again, it's fun. It's a good fun little game. And again, you have to have these exactly as they are. So that's going to be an issue if you are using models that you already own, because I don't know many people who are going to have your Troop Master with a Shuriken pistol. But then again, you know, you're playing, no one's really going to care, are they? It's obvious which one is the Troop Master, and you can only have one weapon. So if your Troop Master's holding a slightly different piece of plastic, I don't think it actually takes away much from the experience. What's more important, I guess, is being able to tell the difference between the ones with the caress and the one with the blade and the ones with the kisses, because they're actually different stats, right? And Tau, right? And it's the stealth team box. You have 3 stealth suits on a drone. Again, because that's what's in the box. You know, and they're quite cool as well, right? So they're shorter range. They do quite a lot of damage. They've only got a 4-up save, so they got worse save than the Harlequins, but they got like 20 wounds. So it's clear that save is meaning something more to do with agility, and then the actual heaviness of the armor's being rolled into the wounds, and it's just inviting you to think about what those characteristics mean in terms of the background a bit more. I don't know. Yeah. And they got the APL3 as well, which is pretty cool. Yeah. Because you've only got 3 suits and a drone. Drone's got APL2, but the suits have APL3. So how does it actually play? I've touched on most of this. It's like Kill Team, but it's hexes, not free movement. The stats are weird, and they're going to wrong foot you. All the attacks work like shooting, so there's that whole combat thing with hits and parries from Kill Team is gone. Everything works like shooting, even combat. You can save crits with normal saves, but you have to save the normal saves first. The line of sight works a lot like Blackstone Fortress, so it's hex-based. You've got to be able to draw a line from the centre of hex to the centre of the next hex that you want to shoot into without going through one of the pre-designated blocked hexes. That's it. There's no flexibility with team building. Secondaries come from a shared deck. 1 ploy per turn from a list of 3. Some stuff that I've missed off the list. You've got the 8 activations per turn that I mentioned. So everybody gets 8 activations per side. But it does, despite having a big list of ways in which it's not Kill Team, it does successfully evoke Kill Team. It evokes the idea of playing a game of Kill Team, but just not. And it takes about, it says 45 minutes on the box. We've got down to about an hour with setup. So it's pretty close. I think they all board games everywhere underestimate the amount of time it takes to play the game, right? But yeah, this is quick. If you actually want a game that can you play in a lunch hour, right, then this might be a game you actually can play a game of Fireteam in an hour. You can't play a game of Kill Team in an hour. Games Workshop like to say that you can, but you can't unless you get very, very good or someone's set it up for you maybe. But this you can actually play in an hour, so that's something that's really got going for it. Okay. So to sum up, it's expensive. It's almost 50 quid, assuming you're paying the shipping from Game in the UK, and that's not reflected in the models that you get. So you're paying a lot for the rules that you could download for free. You're basically paying for the board and the tokens and the cards. Okay, so it's expensive. I guess it's priced similarly to other kinds of games in those bookshelf game sections in those kind of shops. I guess if you've never bought a Games Workshop product before, you're going to be impressed with the Assault Marines and the Necrons. You're not going to think, oh, they've used these sprues in so many other products and I've got loads of them and they're all over eBay. That's not going to enter into your thinking. So for the intended customer, it's probably a reasonable price point, right? Just for somebody that's into the hobby, not so much. But is it any good for learning the game? It got my stepson, Tabletop Impulse Junior, to the table, rolling dice, smiling, having fun, looking forward to the next game. So I'm going to say that's a big win. Wait for my video on the best way to teach kill teams to different kinds of people for that, and wait until I had a chance to read through the Recruit Edition leaflet that's coming in the new starter set as well to talk about that. With all these bookshelf games, I constantly question if people know they exist. They haven't really marketed them. They're not really interested in marketing them. They're not aimed at people like us, people that are watching this channel. I guess they're aimed at people who've never played a Games Workshop game. So are they just marketing them by putting them out on the shelf next to some other games and hoping people to see the side of the box and pick it up? Which is a very old school way of selling something, because it relies on people actually going, they're in shops which traditionally are high street shops. At least Game is in the UK. I don't live in America. I'm assuming that Barnes and Noble is kind of like the Waterstones that we have over here. It is the big chain high street bookshop. Correct me in the comments, Americans, if I'm wrong and it's mainly an online thing. So yeah, that's really what I want to say about that. And then as you can see on the slide, because I'm sure you've looked at the slide, Las Vegas Open previews on Friday, starting at 6 o'clock in the morning. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I'm going to get up early. Normally I get up at 6:30. I then get up, get washed, get dressed, and eat breakfast and all those things. And then I'm out the door, supposedly at 8:10. Sometimes at 8:30. I'm very slow in the mornings, but I'm going to get up 5:30, get ready with it on, absorb it. I always get a video out on Friday anyway, so at some point, won't be one of the first videos that comes out on Friday. I want to sort of sit with it and digest my thoughts, but we know, because they teased it in the article on Warcom, that there's going to be stuff for Kill Team, right? And what I assume the stuff for Kill Team is going to be is the teaser trailer for the next box. The usual thing where they're going to give us like fast cuts of the models on the terrain with coloured light shined on them. Yeah, that's always the first thing that they do. So they'll put the models out on terrain, they'll give us pretty fast cuts with coloured light shined on them, and then they might give us like 1 or 2 proper studio photographs of the model on each side. But at least we'll get confirmation of, is it Corsairs? Almost certainly. What's in the box with them? Is it some form of chaos? Almost certainly. And then we'll get to see exactly what that is and what that looks like, and what terrain, which, there's me rumouring, sort of coming off the top of my head and going, I wonder if it's the Deathworld Forest stuff, but I've heard nothing on that. That Deathworld Forest stuff has come from my brain, nowhere else. So I have no idea what the terrain is. I feel in my bones like it's not going to be a brand new terrain set, just because Chalnath was recycled terrain, so maybe it's going to be recycled terrain. And to manage expectations, maybe the Chaos team is going to be sprues that we've already seen with an upgrade sprue like the Tower. You know, that could happen. It could be one new team and one team with a new sprue. Again, just to manage expectations, that's possible. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you have a really great day. If you've got any thoughts, comments, or feedback about Kill Team Fire Team, or if you're hyped for the Friday video about the Las Vegas Open reveals, be sure to let me know that in the comments. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. I'd say buy things from Element Games, but you can't buy Fire Team from Element Games. You have to go to Game or Barnes & Noble. Very annoying. And yeah, have a great rest of your day wherever you are. Cheery bye.